What if I told you there's a house in Europe where your front door decides what country you legally live in, or that the president of France holds a royal title in a medieval monarchy right now? Today, while you watch this video, Europe's borders look simple on a map, just lines between countries. But get close enough and the whole thing falls apart into some of the most bizarre, unbelievable arrangements in the history of human civilization. Every single fact in this video is legally documented and still in effect. Stay until number 1, because that one will genuinely break your brain. 15. The house that sits in two countries. In the small twin towns of Barla-Hertog and Barla-Nassau on the border of Belgium and the Netherlands, the border doesn't run between buildings. It runs straight through them. Restaurants, shops, and family homes are split right down the middle, half Belgian, half Dutch. For years, the law stated that whichever country your front door opened into was the country you legally lived in. Different tax rules, different regulations, same building. Some homeowners literally moved their front doors across the room to change their legal nationality without packing a single box. Today, the border is marked by white crosses on the sidewalk running straight through living rooms and storefronts. Residents step over it every morning like it's a crack in the pavement. 14. The Spanish town surrounded by France. There is a town called Lévia sitting in what looks like the south of France. Spanish flag, Spanish residents, Spanish grocery stores. But every direction they look, they see France. When the 1659 Treaty of the Pyrenees was signed, Spain agreed to hand over 33 villages to France. Lévia argued it was classified as a town, not a village. France accepted that argument, and Lévia stayed Spanish. The only connection to mainland Spain is a 1-mile road that technically belongs to neither country, a diplomatic strip of asphalt through French farmland connecting a stranded piece of Spain to the rest of its own country. It has been that way for over 360 years. 13. The island that belongs to two countries, 6 months at a time. In the Bidasoa River between France and Spain, there is a small uninhabited island called Pheasant Island. From February to July, it is French. From August to January, it is Spanish. Both governments have been running this rotation for over 350 years without missing a single handover. Nothing lives on it. Nothing is built on it. It just sits there in a river, quietly trading nationalities twice a year, while the rest of the world has no idea it exists. It is often described as one of the oldest jointly administered territories in the world, and it has been changing hands longer than the United States has existed as a country. 12. The German town that runs on Swiss rules. Busingen am Hochrhein is fully German. German passports, German citizens, German flag flying in the town square. But to drive there from Germany, you have to pass through Switzerland. The town is completely wrapped in Swiss territory, and over time, practical reality took over. Residents use Swiss francs because the euro barely functions there. Many emergency and public services are coordinated through neighboring Switzerland. The town operates on Swiss postal codes and Swiss phone infrastructure. There are no border checkpoints because crossing into Switzerland from Busingen is just called going outside. German law technically applies. Swiss daily life actually does. It is the most quietly split personality of any town in Europe, a place that is one thing on paper and something else entirely in practice. Before we keep going, hit subscribe and drop a like. We cover the strangest, most overlooked geography on the planet, and there is a lot more where this came from. 11. The Italian town inside Switzerland. If Busingen sounds confusing, meet Campione d'Italia. Fully Italian, governed from Rome, Italian residents waving Italian flags. But it sits completely inside the Swiss canton of Ticino, surrounded on 3 sides by Swiss mountains and on the 4th by Lake Lugano. For decades, it used Swiss francs instead of euros. It operates on Swiss postal codes and connects to Italy only by boat or a road that cuts through Switzerland. Campione was once a famous gambling destination because certain Italian laws simply didn't reach it the same way. Geography found a legal loophole, and for years an entire town lived inside it. Imagine telling someone you live in Italy and watching their face when you explain that Switzerland is what's outside your window. 10. The Peace of Russia, trapped inside NATO. Between Poland and Lithuania on the Baltic Sea, there is a territory that is completely, legally, fully Russian, not near Russia, not touching Russia, completely cut off from mainland Russia by hundreds of miles of European Union and NATO territory. This is Kaliningrad, home to nearly 1 million Russian citizens and Russia's only ice-free Baltic port. It has been this way since World War II, when the Soviet Union took the region from Germany. Today, to move military equipment there from mainland Russia, the government has to negotiate transit rights through countries that are formal NATO members. It is one of the most geopolitically loaded pieces of land in the world and one of the least discussed in American classrooms. 9. The mountain nobody can officially claim. Mont Blanc is the highest peak in the Alps and one of the most photographed mountains in the world. It is also one of the most quietly disputed pieces of land in Europe. One could say France and Italy genuinely cannot agree on who owns the summit. What's actually happening is that they still use different official maps showing different border lines near the summit. French official maps place the highest point inside France. Italian official maps place it inside Italy. No treaty has ever settled this. No final boundary has ever been drawn. Both governments have maintained their own version of the border for over 150 years and simply agreed not to press the issue. Every year, thousands of climbers reach the top without technically knowing which country they are standing in. 8. The French president, who is also a king. France abolished its monarchy in 1792, and yet the sitting president of France holds a royal title right now. Andorra, the small nation nestled in the Pyrenees Mountains, is a co-principality jointly ruled by two princes. One is the Bishop of Urgell, a Spanish Catholic bishop. The other is the President of France, whoever currently holds that office. When a new French president is elected, they automatically inherit the title of co-prince of Andorra. Their official portrait hangs in Andorran government buildings alongside the bishop's. This arrangement has been in place since 1278. The most prominent republic in Western Europe has been quietly operating a feudal monarchy on the side for 700 years, and it barely makes the news. 7. The zone where the law didn't exist. Until 1864, there was a patch of land on the border of Spain and Portugal where the rules simply did not apply. It was called the Cudo Mixto. Residents could choose Spanish or Portuguese citizenship freely. They paid taxes to neither government. Both countries had agreed that no army from either side could enter. Fugitives from Spanish or Portuguese law could legally be sheltered there. It had its own roads and its own internal customs. For centuries, it existed as a neutral, self-governing zone that two sovereign nations agreed to leave completely alone. When it was finally absorbed into Spain in 1864, residents reportedly wept. They were not gaining a country. They were losing something far more rare, a place that belonged entirely to itself. 6. The stateless country that almost became the capital of a global language. Between 1816 and 1920, a small wedge of land on the border of Belgium and Germany belonged fully to neither side. It was called Neutral Moresnet, and it came to exist because a border dispute left two countries unable to agree on ownership, so they left it alone. The territory issued its own stamps, flew its own flag, and developed a real functioning community. At its peak, a serious political movement pushed to make Neutral Moresnet the official world capital of Esperanto, the constructed language designed to give humanity a common tongue. A stateless territory as the headquarters for a language meant to erase all borders. World War I ended the experiment. Belgium absorbed it, and it vanished from the map entirely. We are down to the 5 facts that are the hardest of all to believe. Make sure you are subscribed so you never miss what this channel finds next. 5. The capital city split by a wall. Nicosia is the capital of Cyprus. It is also the last divided capital city in the world. A UN buffer zone called the Green Line cuts directly through the city center, separating the Greek Cypriot south from the Turkish Cypriot north. It has been this way since 1974. Streets that were once lined with shops now end at barbed wire. Some buildings inside the buffer zone have been sitting completely empty for 50 years, furniture still inside, frozen in time. You can sit in a cafe on one side and look across 50 meters of no man's land at a different government, a different currency, and a different flag. One city, two countries, two administrations, one unresolved conflict that no generation born since has ever known any differently. 4. The British territory at the bottom of Spain. At the southern tip of Spain, where Europe nearly touches Africa across the water, there is a strip of land less than 3 square miles that has been British since 1713. Gibraltar has red phone boxes, British pubs, a Royal Navy base, and a population of about 33,000 people who have voted repeatedly and in overwhelming numbers to remain under British sovereignty. In 2002, they were formally asked again. 98.5% voted to stay British. Spain has never stopped claiming it. The dispute surfaces every few years in diplomatic meetings and newspaper headlines, and Gibraltarians read those headlines, shrug, and carry on. It is one of the last pieces of the British Empire on the European continent, and the people there seem entirely at peace with that. 3. Europe's border fence is built in Africa. Spain has 2 cities on the African continent. Ceuta and Melilla sit on the coast of Morocco, and they are not colonies or overseas territories. They are fully Spanish, fully European Union cities with Spanish mayors, Spanish schools, and Spanish street signs. They are as legally European as Madrid. They are also surrounded by some of the most heavily fortified border infrastructure in the world. European Union-funded fencing, monitored by EU systems, built on African soil. The external border of the European Union does not run along a European coastline in these 2 places. It runs through the middle of Morocco. For anyone trying to understand European immigration policy on a map, Ceuta and Melilla make that map genuinely difficult to explain. 2. The most important border agreement in history was signed in the middle of nowhere. The Schengen Agreement, the deal that eliminated passport controls across most of Europe and created the free movement that nearly 500 million people use every day, was not signed in a grand capital. Not in Brussels, not in Paris, not in Berlin. It was signed in 1985 on a riverboat on the Moselle River in a tiny Luxembourg village called Schengen that most Europeans have never visited. The location was chosen deliberately. Schengen sits at the exact point where Luxembourg, France, and Germany meet, 3 countries converging in one spot, the perfect symbol for an agreement designed to make those borders invisible. The village today has a museum honoring the moment. The most consequential border policy in modern history was decided on a boat. 1. The border that goes 3 levels deep. We started this video in Barl and we end there, because the full picture is even stranger than fact number 15 led on. The border in that town does not just split buildings. It creates a layered system of enclaves inside enclaves inside enclaves. There are Belgian pieces fully surrounded by Dutch territory. Inside some of those Belgian pieces, there are Dutch counter-enclaves. Tiny islands of one country sitting inside islands of another country sitting inside the first country again. The white crosses on the sidewalk marking the border twist through streets, cut through yards, and loop back on themselves in patterns that look less like an international boundary and more like someone spilled a board game and decided it was final. There are more than 30 separate Belgian parcels and 8 Dutch counter-enclaves packed into one small town. Residents grew up with it and find it entirely unremarkable. For everyone else, it remains the most geographically absurd place on Earth, and the single best proof that sometimes the lines humans draw stop making sense long before anyone gets around to redrawing them. Europe looks organized on a world map. Recognizable countries, clean borders, familiar names. But get close enough and you find a continent built on centuries of arguments, accidents, compromises, and stubbornness, all frozen into legal arrangements that nobody has gotten around to undoing. Divided capitals, stranded towns, borrowed monarchs, and enclaves inside enclaves. The borders of Europe are not just geography. They are history that never finished settling. Which fact hit you the hardest? Drop it in the comments below. We read every single one. There is another video on screen right now that goes just as deep. Before you click it, subscribe so you never miss what we find next.